It began on a quiet Thursday afternoon, one of those days when everything feels so ordinary that danger seems impossible. I was sitting by the cafe window near River Street, sipping my coffee and answering work emails, when my phone started to vibrate. The name on the screen made me smile. Lila, cleaning service. She was the young woman I'd hired just a few hours earlier. Sweet voice, polite manners, and grateful to have the job. I'd given her the spare key this morning, told her to take her time cleaning the house while I ran errands. There was no one home. Not me, not my husband, not even our dog. So when I answered, I expected her to say she was finished early, maybe needed help with the vacuum. But what I heard wasn't that. It was breathing. Quick, shallow, trembling. "Ma'am," her voice quivered. "Is anyone supposed to be here with me?" My fingers froze above the keyboard. "No," I said slowly. "Why?" She didn't answer right away. I could hear her trying to steady her breath. Then she whispered, barely audible, "Because there's someone upstairs." For a moment, I thought she was joking, maybe mistaking her own reflection, maybe hearing the old house creak. But there was something in her voice, a kind of fear that doesn't come from imagination. "Lila," I said, forcing calm into my voice, "what do you mean someone's upstairs? Did you see them?" I don't know," she stammered. "I heard footsteps. I thought maybe it was the pipes. But then I saw her." Her. That one word drained every ounce of warmth from my body. I pushed my coffee aside, already standing. "Describe her," I demanded. "She was standing at the end of the hallway," Lila whispered. "She's wearing a long white dress. Her hair's all over her face. She didn't move. She just..." The line went silent. "Lila!" I shouted. "Lila, are you there?" Nothing. I grabbed my keys, ran out to the car, my heart hammering so fast I could barely breathe. As I pulled into traffic, I called her again. Straight to voicemail. Then again. Still nothing. Every red light felt like a punishment. Halfway home, my phone rang again. Same number. I pressed the speaker button, breathless. "Lila!" There was a pause. Then her voice came back, shaking, muffled, like she was hiding. "She's gone," she whispered. "Gone where?" "I don't know." I was cleaning the stairs, and she just disappeared into the room at the end. "Get out of the house, Lila," I shouted. "Now. Go outside and wait for me." The line cut again. My hands were trembling as I called 911. "There's an intruder in my home," I said. "My cleaner is inside. Please send someone now." They asked for the address, the details. But my mind was somewhere else entirely, back in that house. The image of the second-floor hallway flashed through my mind. The old wooden floors, the heavy door of my husband's study, the creaking stairs that always felt too loud at night. "Stay calm, ma'am," the dispatcher said. But calm was gone. All I could think of was Lila's voice. Her whisper. Her. When I turned into my street, I saw flashing lights, a police cruiser parked at the gate. 2 officers were already there, standing by the porch. And then I saw Lila. She was sitting on the front step, her face pale, hands clasped tight around her knees. When she looked up at me, her eyes were wide and wet, trembling like a child's. "She was real," Lila said softly, as I knelt beside her. "I swear she was real." Her voice cracked. "I thought she was you at first, until I saw her eyes." "What eyes?" I asked. She shivered, looking past me toward the house. "They looked exactly like yours." I remember standing there, frozen on the front porch, my knees weak as if the ground itself had vanished beneath me. The police officers exchanged uneasy glances while I tried to process what Lila had just said. The woman she saw had my eyes. It sounded impossible, absurd. And yet, something deep inside me, something instinctive and cold, whispered that she wasn't lying. I led Lila inside, even though every part of me wanted to stay in the sunlight. The house smelled faintly of lemon polish and rain-soaked dust. It looked normal. Too normal. The couch cushions were neatly arranged, the dining chairs aligned perfectly, and a faint hum from the refrigerator filled the silence. No broken locks, no forced doors, no sign of intrusion. Still, Lila's hands wouldn't stop shaking as she pointed toward the staircase. "She was there," she whispered. "Right before that door, the one at the end." I followed her trembling finger. The wooden stairs seemed to stretch higher than usual, their edges shadowed in the dim light. That door, the one to my husband's study, had always stayed locked when he wasn't home. It was his sanctuary, he said. His place to write, to think. I had never questioned it. But now, standing there with Lila's voice quivering beside me, I wished I had. The officers searched the entire house, every room, every closet, even under the old basement stairs. They found nothing. When they left, one of them turned to me with a professional smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Old houses make strange sounds," he said. "You'd be surprised how often wood and shadows play tricks." Then they were gone. As their car disappeared down the street, silence returned, heavy, suffocating silence. Lila stood near the door, her bag clutched tightly against her chest. "I'm sorry, ma'am," she said in a whisper, eyes glistening. "I can't come back here. I saw her." Before I could respond, she turned and ran down the steps, her footsteps echoing until they faded completely. I stood alone in the doorway, staring at the empty street. And that's when I noticed something, a faint reflection in the second-floor window. For a split second, I thought it was me. But I was outside. So how could my reflection be up there? That night, my husband, Daniel, returned from his trip. He looked surprised when he saw the police tape by the front gate. "What happened here?" he asked, setting down his briefcase. I told him everything. Lila's call, her panic, the woman she claimed to see. At first, he listened quietly, but then a faint smile crept across his face. "Love," he said softly, "you've been under a lot of stress lately. Maybe she imagined it. You said she's new, right? Probably nervous." His calm tone only made me more uneasy. "Daniel," I said. She described the woman. "She said she looked like me." He laughed, not cruelly, but dismissively, the way you laugh when someone tells a ghost story you don't believe. "Our mirror in the hallways cracked," he said. "Maybe she saw your reflection doubled. Shadows can do strange things." But I knew Lila hadn't imagined what she saw. Something in her voice, that raw, shaking terror, wasn't the sound of someone inventing a story. And Daniel's easy dismissal felt too practiced, too smooth. He kissed my forehead and went upstairs to his study. I heard the familiar sound of the lock turning. I didn't sleep that night. Every creak of the floor made my heart jump. Around 2 a.m., I thought I heard footsteps above, soft, deliberate steps. I stared at the ceiling, holding my breath, counting the sounds. 1, 2, then silence. I told myself it was just Daniel pacing in his study, except his study wasn't above our bedroom. The attic was. By morning, I was pale and restless, barely able to sip my coffee. Daniel looked refreshed, smiling as if nothing unusual had happened. When I asked about the noise, he simply shrugged. "Probably mice. Old attics are full of them." I wanted to believe him, but something didn't fit. He wasn't acting like a man dismissing nonsense. He was acting like a man hiding something, and the way he looked at me, calm, patient, careful, felt less like love and more like control. That afternoon, while Daniel was out at the publisher's office, I decided to clean the house myself. It felt like the only way to shake off the fear. Room by room, I dusted and scrubbed, until I reached the stairs. My heart tightened as I looked up at that hallway, the same one Lila had pointed to. For a moment, I stood perfectly still, waiting. Nothing. Then, just as I took a step upward, I heard it, faint, like a breath. A voice. Whispering. It came from behind the locked door of Daniel's study. And it was saying my name. For the rest of that day, I tried to convince myself I had imagined the whisper. Maybe it was the pipes. Maybe fatigue. Maybe Lila's nerves had simply infected mine. But by evening, the air inside the house felt heavier, thick with something unseen, like the calm before a thunderstorm that never arrives. When Daniel came home, he seemed unusually cheerful. He hummed softly while setting his briefcase on the hallway table, the same briefcase that always smelled faintly of cedar and ink. He asked how my day was, and I almost told him everything, about the voice, the footsteps, the way Lila had looked at me like I was a stranger in my own home. But the words stopped on my tongue. I watched his hands instead, steady, unshaken, and wondered why he wasn't surprised that the police had been here. Hadn't the neighbors told him? Over dinner he talked about ordinary things. New contracts, a book signing in Charleston, a meeting postponed. Every sentence was perfectly placed, perfectly calm, as if he was reading from a script he'd practiced for years. When I finally mentioned the noise in his study door, his eyes flicked up, just for a second, and then he smiled. "The house is old, Simone," he said gently. "Wood shifts when the temperature drops. You'll drive yourself mad if you keep listening to ghosts." He reached across the table and touched my hand. His palm was warm, but the warmth didn't reach his eyes. I nodded, forcing a smile, though inside, something small and cold began to curl itself around my heart. That night, I couldn't sleep. The clock on the bedside table ticked louder than it ever had. Around 2, I heard it again, that faint creak above the ceiling. Not random. Not wood. A rhythm. Footsteps. I sat up, holding my breath. The sound moved slowly across the ceiling, toward the corner of the room, then stopped. I waited, my pulse pounding in my throat. Seconds stretched into minutes. Then, softly, a single thud. "Daniel," I whispered. He stirred, half asleep. "What is it?" "Someone's upstairs." He sighed, rolled onto his side. "Simone, it's probably the attic window. I'll check in the morning." He pulled the blanket higher and was asleep again before I could answer. But I stayed awake until dawn, watching shadows crawl across the ceiling, counting every breath I took. The next morning, I decided I'd had enough. When Daniel left for work, I went to the hallway closet and took out the spare set of attic keys. They jingled softly in my hand, a sound that somehow felt forbidden. The ladder groaned as I climbed. Dust spiraled down through the slats of light. The air smelled of paper, glue, and something older, the scent of forgotten time. I reached the top and pushed open the hatch. The attic was exactly as I remembered. Stacks of boxes, old trunks, and one antique mirror leaning against the far wall. But there was something new. A faint trail of footprints across the dust, bare feet, small, leading toward the corner near Daniel's study wall. My throat tightened. I crouched, running my fingers along the prints. They were fresh. The dust was still unsettled. A cold draft brushed my neck. I turned. The hatch door was moving, closing slowly behind me. I ran, pushing it back open, my heart hammering. Downstairs, everything was silent again. Too silent. I locked the hatch, shoved the keys back into the drawer, and stood there shaking, telling myself I'd imagined everything. But when I walked into Daniel's study to calm down, I stopped dead in the doorway. His desk was immaculate, every paper stacked neatly. Except for one thing, a long, thin strand of hair curled across the keyboard. Not mine. Paler. Almost white. That night I asked him casually, "Did you go into the attic today?" He didn't look up from his book. Why would I? Just wondered. I thought I heard something. He smiled. "You and your imagination." I smiled back, but inside, I knew imagination didn't leave footprints. And it didn't have hair that shimmered silver under the lamplight. The days that followed turned the house into a stranger. At first it was little things. Doors left ajar, drawers I could have sworn I'd closed. Then came the noises. Not random creaks, but deliberate sounds. A chair scraping the floor above, a faint cough in the empty hallway. Each time, Daniel had an explanation ready. "The wind," he said. "Old pipes," he said. But the one thing he never said was, "I hear it too." One afternoon I came home from the market, juggling groceries. The moment I stepped in, a chill hit me, the smell of damp soap and steam. Upstairs, the bathroom door stood wide open. The floor was wet, puddles everywhere, as though someone had just stepped out of the shower. My reflection in the fogged mirror stared back, pale, wide-eyed, disbelieving. I called out, "Daniel!" No answer. He was supposed to be out of town that day. Every instinct screamed to leave the house, but I stayed, gripping the towel rail like a weapon. That night, I told him what I'd seen. He smiled, pouring himself tea. "Probably a leak in the pipes, love. I'll fix it tomorrow." He never did. And when I asked again, he looked at me with a softness that felt wrong, the kind of softness you use to quiet a child. The next morning, the refrigerator door was open. Inside, the plate of food I'd wrapped for dinner was gone. In its place, a single silver spoon lay across the shelf. Clean. Shining. Like someone had eaten and politely left the evidence. My hands shook as I closed the fridge. That's when I heard a soft thump from above. The attic. I looked up, heart hammering. The sound came again, slow, dragging, like footsteps across the old boards. I called out, "Daniel!" No reply. Just another step, heavier this time. I climbed halfway up the ladder before I froze. Something was different. The air smelled of old paper and perfume, a scent I hadn't worn in years. Then I saw it, a faint light seeping through the attic hatch. For a moment, I almost opened it. Almost. But then I heard it, a whisper low and unmistakable. "Simone." My name. I stumbled back, heart pounding, and slammed the hatch shut. The whisper stopped instantly, as if whoever said my name had been waiting for me to listen. That night, I locked every door, every window, and sat awake till sunrise, staring at the ceiling. Daniel slept peacefully beside me, like nothing was wrong. But I knew better. Someone, or something, was living above us. And I was done pretending not to hear it. That night, I waited until Daniel left for his late meeting. The moment his car disappeared down the street, I grabbed the attic key. No more excuses. No more pretending. I needed the truth. The ladder groaned as I climbed, every step echoing like a countdown. When I pushed the hatch open, a wave of stale air met me, damp, heavy, full of dust and secrets. My flashlight sliced through the darkness, catching the shapes of old trunks, boxes, and something else, a faint shimmer of glass. In the far corner stood a mirror I'd never seen before, a tall, antique thing draped in a torn sheet. The air around it felt colder. I walked closer, the floor creaking beneath me. When I pulled the sheet away, dust exploded into the air. And in the mirror, there was a woman. For a heartbeat I thought it was my reflection, but it wasn't. Her face looked like mine, same eyes, same mouth, but older, hollow, drained of color. She stared back at me, lips parted as if she wanted to speak. Then the light flickered, and she was gone. My chest tightened. The flashlight shook in my hand. "Hello," I whispered. No answer, only a rustle behind me. I turned, and saw something half hidden behind the boxes. A small table. A notebook lying open. I stepped closer. The pages were filled with handwriting, soft, elegant, not Daniel's. The first line froze me. "For Simone, when the truth finally finds you." My heart thudded. Page after page, drafts, letters, entire stories, each signed with the same name. Evelyn Hart. A name I hadn't heard in years. Was wrong. Not angry, not curious, something colder. I forced my voice to stay calm. Just cleaning. I thought I heard something. Silence. Then, the faint creak of a step. He was climbing the ladder. My hands trembled as I backed away. Through the thin crack of light from the hatch, I saw his shadow rise into view, slow, patient, deliberate. When his face finally appeared, half lit by the hallway lamp, his smile was faint, calculated. "I told you not to come up here," he said softly. And in that moment, with the notebook heavy in my bag, I realized the truth. The noises, the food, the whispers, the shadow with my eyes. They weren't ghosts. They were secrets. And Daniel had been living with them for years. Daniel's eyes never left mine. Up there in the attic, with the air thick as stone dust, his calm smile felt like a mask stretched too tight. "You weren't supposed to find that," he said softly, stepping closer. The floor groaned beneath him, and for the first time in years, I saw fear, not in me, but in him. I clutched my bag tighter, feeling the edge of Evelyn's notebook pressing against my ribs. "Where is she, Daniel?" My voice trembled. "Tell me the truth." He tilted his head, as if the question amused him. "You wouldn't believe me if I did. Try me." He took a slow breath. "She's alive." The world seemed to stop. Alive. The word echoed inside my skull like a bell. My sister. My dead sister. Alive. Daniel kept talking, his voice low, measured. "It wasn't supposed to happen this way. The night of the accident, she came to me, broken, terrified. She told me what she'd done. Your sister killed someone, Simone. Her editor. It was an accident, but no one would have believed her." He looked at me almost tenderly. "I hid her. For you. To protect your family name." I shook my head. "No, you didn't do this for me. You did it for yourself." He didn't deny it. "I saw what she'd written," he whispered. "Beautiful words. Simone. She had a gift. She would have wasted it in a cell. So I became her voice. I gave her stories to the world." He smiled faintly, eyes glinting. "Every page you read under my name, those were her hands, her mind. And you, my love, you believed in me. You made me real." My stomach turned. The books, the fame, the life we built, it was all stolen. Every signing, every speech I'd applauded, Evelyn's ghost had been screaming behind the curtain. "Where is she now?" I whispered. He hesitated. The silence was answer enough. "Downstairs," he said finally. "She doesn't like the light anymore." The words sank in slowly, like poison. My heart pounded as I pushed past him and ran down the narrow stairs. The house felt different, every wall breathing, every floor pulsing beneath my feet. At the bottom of the staircase, near the back of the hallway, I saw the faint glow of a lamp beneath the old cellar door. I yanked it open. There, sitting on a small cot surrounded by stacks of paper and empty cans, was Evelyn. Her hair was silver now, her eyes dim but alive. She looked up, blinking against the light, and when she saw me, her lips curved into a trembling smile. "Simone," she whispered. "I knew you'd hear me one day." I fell to my knees. All the years I'd spent mourning her, all the lies I'd swallowed, they hit me in a single shattering wave. I held her hands, bones fragile as glass, and whispered, "I'm here. You're safe now." Behind us, Daniel's voice drifted down the stairs. "Be careful what you call truth," he said. "Sometimes lies keep the world standing." But I wasn't listening anymore. Because for the first time in decades, I wasn't afraid of the dark. The police arrived before sunrise. I don't remember calling them. Maybe it was the neighbors who heard the shouting. By then, Daniel was sitting at the kitchen table, calm as ever, his hands folded neatly like he was waiting for a meeting. When they took him away, he didn't fight. He only looked at me once and said quietly, "You'll regret opening that door." But I didn't. Because that door, the one leading to the cellar, had given my sister her freedom back. Evelyn was taken to the hospital first. Doctors said she was dehydrated, malnourished, but strong enough to recover. I stayed by her side for days, watching color return to her cheeks, the spark in her eyes flicker again. For the first time in decades, she slept in a bed with sunlight streaming across her face. A few weeks later, her statement changed everything. The truth came out, about the night of the accident, the crime she tried to escape, and how Daniel had trapped her here all these years, feeding on her words, her talent, her silence. The police found her manuscripts, thousands of pages written by candlelight. The same books that had made Daniel famous. Every sentence, every character, hers. When the trial came, the world finally learned her name. Evelyn Hart, the real author behind the lies. Her story spread across newspapers, talk shows, and headlines. People cried reading her words, the same words that once lived in darkness. Daniel was convicted. Years in prison, no applause, no cameras, no adoring fans. Just walls and silence. The same silence he'd once forced on her. I kept the house for a while, but it never felt like home again. Every corner held echoes of the past, whispers of things that should have never been hidden. One morning, I went back to the attic for the last time. Sunlight streamed through the cracks in the roof, landing on Evelyn's desk, the same one Daniel once called his. Her final manuscript lay there, unfinished, the ink still faded but alive. At the top of the first page, she'd written one line, "Truth may hide in darkness, but it never dies there." I closed the notebook gently. For the first time, I understood what she meant. Sometimes the monsters we fear aren't ghosts at all. They're the people who learn to smile while keeping secrets. If this story gave you chills or touched your heartbroken heart, leave a comment below. Tell me, what would you have done if you were in Simone's place? Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so I can keep bringing you more powerful life stories that uncover hidden truths. Your support keeps these stories alive, Crescent Moon. Thank you for listening. And remember, sometimes the scariest place in the world is the one you call home. Candle.